comic books and chill, the home of these Stash Bros. I'm Mike, chilling with Chris.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another show. We appreciate you tuning in. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy more comic book content.
We are reuniting the creative team of Batman Under the Hood.
Hell yes.
One of the most influential modern stories in comics, I might add. That's right, we have JUDD WINICK, Doug MAHNKE, Tom Nguyen, and the Houdini of Hugh, Alex Sinclair.
Yeah! What's up, guys?
Well, before we talk to the crew, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please comment.
Let's get started.
All right. Joining us is the creative team of the classic Batman Under the Hood. I want to formally introduce our guest today. First up is by far the strongest man in comics.
Yes, he is.
I pay top dollar to see him arm wrestle Phil Jimenez and Greg Capullo.
Any day, any time.
He has been penciling comics for over 30 years, the co-creator of The Mask and Procreate animation phenom. Doug MAHNKE is in the house.
Doug. Woo!
For the first time, we have writer. This is a real treat. We have writer. JUDD WINICK is in the house.
Woo! Let's go.
He's a longtime writer for DC. Green Arrow has not been the same since this man left. I still got my Kleenex out. He has released many young adult novels like High-Low, Saving the Whole Wide World. JUDD WINICK, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen, for having me.
Next up, this man is a pioneer in digital coloring, the primary color artist for the legend, Jim Lee. This dude has worked on everything from Darth Vader, Flash, to Spider-Man. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sultan of Shade, Alex Sinclair.
Yeah, what's up, Alex?
Thanks for having me, guys.
And finally, also joining us for the first time,
About time.
this inker has been in the game for damn near 30 years as well, inking for titles like JLA, that's the Justice League, Green Lantern, and Final Crisis. I couldn't wait for this man to join us to share this story of the tale of two wins, a bastard story. I'll explain that later. Ladies and gentlemen, the multi-talented inker, Tom Nguyen.
Yes, welcome, Tom.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's dive right on in. And so, JUDD, we're just going back to that time you were working on Batman. You were working on Batman prior to Under the Hood. I believe the arc right before Under the Hood with Justin Nguyen, I believe, and I think Alex was on that book. But first, tell us as a writer what it means to you to work on the flagship Batman title.
Oh, my goodness. It's, I kind of have to go back when I first started writing Green Lantern to explain the awesome feeling and goosebumpy chill you have when you're sitting there for the first time. Like, I'm writing Green Lantern, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying it, and then I decide to have some other superheroes in there, and you write the words for the first time, and then Superman lands. It's like, I'm writing Superman, writing Superman. And, eventually everyone else forms their way in, Batman and Wonder Woman. And it is a huge thrill because, I said for a long time that superhero comics are, at this point, they're all fan fiction. Because everyone who's currently working on them is old enough to have been a kid when they were reading them. So now we get to play with the toys in the toy box, practically literally. When it came to Batman, my go-to guy, my rabbi, the guy who always took care of me, was a man named Bob Schreck.
Right.
Bob is the one who gave me my start in superhero comics a few years earlier than that. And when the time came, he said, you knew it was just gonna be a matter of time, right? It's like, yeah, I wasn't assuming. I was hoping that the day would come I get to write Batman. And I did. I was excited. And then it's coupled with the thing so what are you gonna do?
Right?
Okay, Alex, you worked on Batman Hush, which brought back Jason Todd into the fold of things. You were also working on the Batman story arc prior to Under the Hood. So help us bridge the gap between Hush and Under the Hood.
I found out when I read the script for that issue, when all of a sudden it's, holy crap, it's Jason Todd that's there. And was a great scene that Jeff Loeb had written and Jim and Scott had done the art for, and loved working on that. So Hush was my first work on the Batman regular series. And then right after we finished Hush, Ed Risso's run hit in there for, I think, 6 issues.
Yep.
And then I came back for, I think it was 626. And that was Judd writing with Dustin drawing. And I think that went for about 5 issues. And that's when Doug and Tom came in and we did the Red Hood thing after that. So it was me just taking a break from Batman for Risso to do his thing. And then the editors wanted me back on the book after that, and so I just kind of came back. I didn't know who was going to be doing anything until I got that first script and set of pages.
Now we're talking about bringing Jason Todd back in comics, right?
Yeah.
Now we know Jason Todd had his little cameo in Hush with Jim Lee and Jeff Loeb,
Right.
And then now, were you brought on to bring back Jason?
Oh, that was my dumb idea.
Yes.
What happened was, well, we should start right here. So I'm reading Hush, just like everybody else. I'm reading Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee's Hush, and loving it, and, it's insane. Everybody's in it. And I, too, got to the part of the story where Batman's in the graveyard with Hush, and Hush is revealing himself and pulls the bandages off, and he says he's Jason Todd, thrown into the Lazarus pit and back from the dead. And I just lost my mind.
Hell yeah.
Because I thought it was so exciting, but also just as a wee storyteller myself, I was saying, oh, I could totally see this. This is just all laid out like 100 miles of broken road. This is so exquisitely horrible. It's an opera. So Jason, who is it's Batman's greatest mistake. It's his biggest sin. He let Jason die. It's, that is the totem in the Batcave, is his costume. And here he is, alive, a villain, and the one who's just taking him apart. So I was like, this is great. Strap in. I can't wait to see what happens next. Ooh. And the next issue, turns out it's Clayface. It's like, oh, okay, that's another way. That's another way to go, I guess. Okay. So I was a little disappointed. The story ended great. I mean, no knocks on Hush. It was a great story. But I was very excited about that part. So when the musical chairs of who's going to write Batman stopped, and I get to sit in the chair, Bob Schreck asked me, he said, so what do you want to do? And I said, I kind of want to bring back Jason Todd. And Bob did not want to do that.
Oh.
No. Bob actually, he felt it was going to kind of be like a stunt. He think it lacked a certain amount of depth. And we went back and forth on it. But I have to say this, Bob, on top of being a terrific editor, he's a superlative human being. And he actually let me do this story before he was sold on it. It wasn't until 4 or 5 issues in when he finally said, like, okay, he won me over. And it's like, what was it? He goes, I don't know. Just in the telling, he said, I just felt like it was going to be a stunt, but, I'm reading it now, and it's really suspenseful, and it's got a lot of heart, and now I'm in. He said, I wasn't in at first. I don't know. And he apologized. He didn't have enough faith in me, but just said, but now we're a few issues in here, and I see it. So we'll keep at it. So that was a little bit of a high wire act, because it was hard, because Bob had been my champion. He's the one I started out with, and it was really, we had like editorial kerfuffles about stuff before, but this was like, yeah, I don't think you should do this. Like, okay, but I kind of want to do it. and I would have backed down if he pushed me, but he said, like, look, you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Go ahead. That's the long-winded way about how it started.
So, Doug, Batman 635 is your first work on a Batman title since you did the cover work in No Man's Land. We hear from other creators in comics that it is just work, right? Working in comics. But is there any sense of accomplishment or a feeling of pride when it comes to working on DC's most popular title, Batman?
Well, at the time, I'd already done, quite a bit. You touched on JLA and some experience with Superman and all that. And to be perfectly honest, I've become a much bigger Batman fan since then. I knew, Batman's major title. I understand that. I just finished up, or Tom and I just finished up, whatever. Maybe he can remember. And they're fishing around for me to do some stuff. And I got a call from the Bat office, and they had offered me Nightwing. Now, there's nothing wrong with Nightwing. Nothing at all. But at the time, I mean, when I heard I don't know what the storyline was going to be or some aspects of it, I literally declined. I said, I'd rather do something else. To me, it felt like a step down from what I had been doing. And you want to, when your engine's hot, you want to kind of keep going, right? Which I don't think sat well with the Bat office at the time, probably. And then my good friend and editor, Pete Tomasi, he walked down to, I can't remember who he must have made a request of, but he went down and he says, don't let them offer him Nightwing. They should offer him Batman. It might have been Dan at the time. Maybe it's the deal. It all mixes up together in my head.
I think it was still Paul, yeah.
It was Paul?
I think Paul was still there, yeah.
I guess that was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But Paul probably said, you know what, you're right. And so he went down and said, I think he said, put Doug on Batman. And so they called me up and let me know. And at that point, the relief is, I'm on a book, and that's the first part that occurs to you is like, that's a good deal. And to be honest, I didn't grow up a Batman fan even. To me, Batman, we've already talked about this before, but I was a Marvel kid. I didn't know much about DC. So I didn't have like a grasp of the magnitude, nor did I understand like the concept of how pivotal bringing Jason Todd back was. I didn't even know how long he had been gone. When you sit down and you draw comics, you get scripts, and just bang, 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 and you're doing it. If you don't know all of the company lore and what had come before, you're kind of at a loss, and you kind of have to play catch up. And Tom and I both were often doing a lot of catching up because, I don't think Tom was all that big of a DC guy. He was more of like a
Marvel kid too.
Marvel, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but
to me, Batman was TV. I didn't read DC Comics until I started working there. Clearly, I've made a lot of progress since then. And Batman was part of JLA. So I'd already drawn some Batman.
So Tom, how did you get involved? Was it the fact that you previously worked with Doug?
Yeah, basically. It's a lot of my the first half of my career being with Doug. I don't really get into the trenches as far as dealing with the behind the scenes and maybe even some of the politics behind what decisions get made. I think at the time it was just more kind of assumed that because we were a team, whatever Doug was working on, I would just kind of tag along with it. I do remember that we were coming off of Justice League Elite because we had done like 2 or 3 years on JLA, and then from there we did the 12-issue maxi series of Justice League Elite. And when that was done, one of the things on my mind was, are we going to have work after this? And then I think editorial barely even communicated with me. And a lot of my communication was just through what they told Doug, and Doug would call me, oh yeah, I guess we're just moving on to Batman. I'm like, okay, sweet. And like Doug said, we don't really know the magnitude of what we were about to embark. Really, it wasn't until after Red Hood storyline came out, years after, that I started to actually understand and realize how important that story was. Because after Batman, I remember I was jumping, helping out on Final Crisis right away, and then I had the tag team between Doug and Pat Gleason on Blackest Night. So during that time, it was a whirlwind of just hopping back and forth on different projects and just trying to meet deadlines. And whatever we had done, at least for me, it was just rear view mirror. And the pivotal moment for me was that, like, we get like royalties every quarter, but it was like when the Red Hood, like I always saw bigger royalties from other books I had worked on, and then slowly from behind, the Red Hood caught up and just overtook. And we're talking about today. I don't even work full-time in comics anymore. I hadn't in a few years. I try to keep one foot in it. But to this day, like, the Red Hood is the one that keeps getting brought up all the time. It's always, the biggest thing on my royalty statements. It's the thing that gets me, like I said before, invited to comic book conventions. And I started to put the pieces together after that, and then they sent, I get a DVD of the animated movie in the mail one time, and then, which I still haven't watched. I jumped straight to the special features section because I wanted to see if they used any panels from the book. That's all I cared about at the time. And then, and then he started to appear in like media and video games, and it just kind of slowly, it slowly made me realize, like, I think I worked on a pretty big deal storyline.
We're going to tap on a lot of the things that you mentioned, man. You hit on a lot of stuff.
So, Judd, can you please talk about working with Doug for the first time and what that dynamic was like?
Doug, no, he is. I don't want to knock everyone else I worked with, but Under the Red Hood is one of my favorite stories. It's a story I'm one of them most proud of. I feel it really stood on its feet, and so much of that had to do with Doug. He has a very unique storytelling style. To talk on the negative of other artists, to give him the compliment is weird, but I will say he creates characters that are very much characters. His people don't look the same. They look very different. They look very defined. He's a great designer.
Right.
And he is a terrific, he's a terrific actor. And a lot of people don't think about it too much, that in the art, the characters have to act. And also your penciler is your director. I don't tell him how to light it. I don't tell him how to make it more dramatic. I don't tell him, I think when, Red Hood rips off Batman's cowl here and we see his face, make sure his brow's good and low and that all the rain is dripping off of him and a little bit of blood. Yeah, that's all Doug.
Nice.
And he's a really gritty, emotional, and solid storyteller. I don't think he gets enough credit. People talk to me about the Red Hood all the time, and the fact that, Doug and I co-created this character, the first one who brought him to life, and what everyone sees, is a lot what Doug brought to it.
Alex, was this the first time you working with Doug and Tom?
It was, yes.
So walk us through coloring an artist for the first time. Is there a primary discussion that happens at first, or do you just dive in and make tweaks along the way?
We usually try and at least send an email and say, hey, is there anything you don't like, anything you prefer? It was so long ago, I honestly don't remember if we even spoke ahead of time. I liked it because Doug's style is so graphic. It's cool because then I can go a little more adaptive with it and be graphic myself and push the colors.
Your colors are fantastic.
No, thank you. And it's always my goal to complement what's been done ahead of me, and so it's always cool to get art that is so. With some artists, you kind of have to. It's work, but with others, it just happens. It just flows. It just kind of comes together, and then I do remember that with Doug and Tom's work. It really just kind of happened. I just sat down and it just started working, and so it was a lot of fun. The story really kind of lent itself to being that way too, and so it just, like I said, I didn't have to struggle to get to to a style that was going to fit with their art.
Wow, wow.
I just want to say Doug is badass in our eyes as well. We love him a lot. He's on the show all the time. He's just a genuinely amazing person.
I got to ask this question to Tom real quick, because in my opinion, traditional inking is like the most terrifying thing to do in comics. I mean, anywhere from just creative differences between the penciler and the inker to wholesale catastrophes of spilling ink on paper or something.
No!
There's so many things that can go wrong with inking. It's
That's actually happened.
It's like Final Destination. Like anywhere it could go, things can go wrong. But I know by the time you guys were working on Under the Hood, you and Doug were firing on all cylinders because of your previous work with JLA and all of that stuff. But take us back to when you first started working with Doug. How long did it take for you to figure him out?
Not too long. I gotta give a little bit of a backstory. I mean, I met Doug when I was 15 years old, and so long story short, we had the same art teacher when we were kids.
That's cool.
Wow. And so she actually, brought us together when I told her I wanted to be a comic book artist at 15. At that time, it was still like the image boom, so I was like, collecting all the hot artists of that time. It was always a Jim Lee fan, and just all the big image guys, And then I met Doug, and he was working on The Mask. I think The Mask Returns, if I recall correctly at the time. And showed me some original pages and started, I looked at it, and I was inking with like ballpoint big pens and stuff. I didn't know what I was doing, just showing him my chicken scratch. And he critiqued me like any pro artist would to an aspiring artist. And what really floored me was I think I asked him like what he uses to ink, or maybe he just showed me. He says, we ink with this, and he shows me a brush, a big brush, and a bottle of ink, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, you don't use a pen? And so yeah, that's what started my journey inking. But ever since then, at that time, Doug was inking himself almost all the time, and I would study how he inked him. He was my only direct contact into the comic book industry, the only one I knew at the time. So, then we became friends, so I always kept tabs on his work, whatever came out. Fast forward to 1995, late 95, 96, Lobo Mask just came out for DC. I think it was just a two-shot or something. Yeah. And I think at that time, I was really starting to realize that how much of a difference inkers can make in how a penciler looks. And I grew up and I knew Doug from how he would ink his own work, and I just kind of emulated that, and I basically implored with Doug to give me a try, and I think I was just like a cocky young kid, and I just said, hey, I could do it, let me try, because I think he told me that they were going to do Major Bummer, which is like a cult classic 15-issue thing for DC that came out in like 97. And
that was your first work, wasn't it?
That was my first work.
Yeah, first work.
I did 1 year at college at the U of M, and then I dropped out because I just didn't like college. My dad was going to beat the crap out of me, because I wasn't doing the traditional Asian thing and trying to be a doctor, Told him I wanted to become a comic book artist, and he just smoke come out of his ears and just get the belt ready, bring dishonor to the entire family tree. But Doug gave me a try. I think he can vouch for me that I was always working on and motivated to try to get better. I mean, yeah. I had already been at 19. I was already really pretty decent with a brush, just because I've been using it ever since I discovered it at age 15. As a lucky young kid, I just kind of hit the ground running. And in a way, it's embarrassing telling how I broke in, because I'll do panels at Comic-Cons and with multiple people, artists, and we'll get almost always we'll get asked, how did you break in? And then, a lot of the people will say, well, we did the grunt work of going to cons and sending samples for years and getting rejections, and here I am. Well, I knew Doug, and kind of and I broke in at 19.
Is there a moment or a page within Batman Under the Hood that you were impressed with yourself? This is a roundtable discussion. Is there a moment?
I crushed that panel.
Starting with you, Doug.
Unfortunately, I can't tell you the issue number because I just don't remember which one it is. It was the last one I did. And it's not even a single panel. It was a sequence where the Black Mask is fighting the Red Hood. And I just loved how that turned out. To this day, I just love that fight scene. To me, it's the best fight scene I ever did. So many cool things happened in it. Because I remember specifically some of the things like stabbing him in the back with a pool cue and stuff like that. But it was working out all of these because it was a lot. It was several pages worth, and it just, I don't know. I've always been proud of it. I'll even look back at it to reference, how did I used to do stuff? What's the takeaway from looking at this? Because it was beautifully inked, beautifully colored, and I think it's just a fantastic fight scene.
I think it's the ending that we were talking about, where Jason and Bruce have it out about Joker. The entire scene had been in my head when I started. And right down to Bruce, Jason saying, "How could you let him live?" And Bruce telling him, like, "Don't you think a day goes by where I don't think about killing him? That would be easy. Like, I can't let myself do that because it'll never end." I loved how it all came together. And it was one of those things where, again, start the story and like a year and a half later, okay, I finally get to do it. And that's, and that was a blast. I mean, and on the flip side, I like all the funny parts. I liked the jokes. I like it that, Jason's on a rooftop holding a rocket launcher and Black Mask looks through the window and sees him. Jason gives him a wave. And Black Mask takes off, and Jason, like, lifting up the rocket launcher, like, boy, he can move when he wants to. And fires the rocket off.
Tom, what about you?
Iconic. Yeah, for me, the two things that stand out to me were that opening double page spread, which I believe was pages 2 and 3. I mean, that's like an iconic image. I mean, I was proud of how my line work came out. It was just an awesome scene. The colors was just amazing. And the only other notable thing that I recall from working on it, I don't remember the issue number. I remember it was the one with Amazo in it, that issue.
Oh, yes.
So here's a little footnote from that issue. So I and an inking assistant, and my assistant, all he did was just fill in the blacks, just to help speed me up. But together we did that entire issue in 1 week. Like literally we did 7 days.
Wow.
In 1 week, because I think we were just so behind, and when we got the pages, the book was already late and everything, and it's not my best work inking, but in the time that we were given to do it, I was really proud of how it came out, and then I was like, well, in the parts that were a little rushed and sloppy, happens to all of us, not proud to admit that. You hope that the colorist comes through, and I'm like, Alex, just save me here. Make me look good, buddy. I know you can do it. And Alex just comes and I get the book back, I get the comps back, and I'm like, I mean, it was so nice. It was so beautiful. So thanks, Alex.
All right, Alex, what about you? Your favorite moment?
You know what? I loved doing that helmet, man. That red helmet was so cool to work with. One of the things that I did love about working on Doug and Tom's art was, like I mentioned before, it's graphic, and so I started doing rendering. Back then I was doing rendering shapes with gradients and airbrush, and I started to make them more graphic than realistic, because I thought that would lend itself better to their art style, and I just loved experimenting on the helmet with different shapes for the lighting and stuff like that. That and that leather jacket, I loved working on both those things, and so I was page after page of it. So it's just kind of coming together of all that. I just kind of enjoyed working on it continuously because I got to kind of push myself and experiment as I was working on it all the way through.
Man, I'm excited that somebody said that double page spread in the first issue. That was just so like iconic, like you said, Tom. Okay, so but here's another switching gears. Already, Tom, you said you didn't see the movie, so you're going to be disqualified from this question. But Chris and I firmly believe that Batman Under the Red Hood is pound for pound, no hyperbole, pound for pound, the best Batman movie, better than all of them.